Well, I have a high degree of confidence if some of the information that you brought to bear to us so far today, if we are able to get that to our colleagues in the budget and in the rest of the legislature, that we'll have an opportunity there. Ted, to that brief question, are we losing the World War II folks? Are they not getting enough from the Korea?
Well,
You know, that we didn't even know what post-traumatic stress syndrome was then, and it certainly would not be implied that any of those veterans in the history of America did not have that. Maybe in those days it was taking aspirin, but at least we know more how to deal with it, correct? But with the services, and they're more aware now, maybe we're availing to a higher degree, but those World War II and Korea, are they not getting what we could provide them, or what could we do more for them?
well, that is the biggest barrier to accessing your benefits is you don't know you have them coming. And the World War II, Korean, and Vietnam vets are, and some peacetime vets are in that pot. So brilliantly, the state of California legislature and the governor has signed a bill last year to have veteran put on the license. Okay, I can't think of any veteran that I know that would not want veteran on their license. There's only one way to make that happen. You have to come and see us, and we have to see your DD-214 and verify that you're a veteran. That's going to happen this year. So even people that have already been to my office are 100% disabled. It doesn't say veteran on their license. And so the guy who's living in an assisted living facility who still has an ID card or a license, he's going to want, or she's going to want that designation. They have to come to our office. And we've sort of been piecemealing this with our own. I have an ID card. Dana has an ID card. I'm sure LA has an ID card. So we've been getting some people to come in for this sort of unofficial ID card. This is an official state document that's going to say veteran on it. And you got it for life. You pay a $5 fee, but you have to come into our office. So we look at your DD-214. Oh, you were in Vietnam. Or, oh, you're wearing hearing aids. Oh, and we go through the 20 questions. We're going to get so many people into this system, it's not going to be funny, okay? It's going to be a great thing. So we are covering them. We have a strategy. It's in place. But if I get 33,000 veterans coming to my office at the end of this year, I'm going to need my staff. Yes. So I've got to hire 3 people with this extra. I got $113,000 last year extra with that $3 million split up. I'm going to need that money. If I don't have it, I'm going to be, you know where.
Well, Ted, that's not an unintended consequence. That's an intended consequence, right. But it is a consequence nonetheless. And that's another argument for some financial help so that you can meet that need. Senator Roth, any question?
Just 2 quick ones, Mr. Chair. Thank you. You 3 obviously have some superb programs. So thank you very much for what you do, what you've done in the military and what you currently do. Like the military, is there a process in your state organization or CalVet to cross-feed best practices, the best practices that you all have employed in your operations to other CVSO operations in the state? And if so, what is it?
Sir, there's a process in place. We meet every 4 months basically and have our conference, and we share ideas and information. And that's one of the biggest things at our conferences for us is doing that networking and finding out what's working best in one county versus another county, and adapting these programs so that they can get started in other counties and sharing that knowledge base. And we have a email system that's set up between all the members. And for instance, like in our county, we started our Veterans Treatment Court about 18 months ago, and there are other counties around the state that are trying to get these programs started. And so we share the best practices on those from each county so that what works best in my county might not quite work as good in Ted's county. And so we'll share both those best practices and let the new county find out what works best for them.
And the CalVet did issue, and we can get you that document, a best practices handbook last year, which did what Dana just talked about. Three times a year, we have mandated training for 3 weeks. I can't think of any other organization, even the Senate, that sends you away for 3 weeks a year to train on how to do your job.
We could use that.
Yeah.
Very professional.
Okay, so anyway, we have the VA, we have the state, we have all the resources there 3 times a year for a week, and we just, in fact, 2 weeks ago, we had it here in Sacramento. And the CalVet has put together a document which we can get you what our best practices are.
Perfect. Just one quick question, one quick additional question, Mr. Chair, and that has to do with jobs. And I realize CalVet's mission does not include veterans' jobs. At least that's what I recall being told in the last 2 years. One, have you all had difficulty in getting local EDD organizations to focus on veterans' jobs? And two, have you seen any metrics come out of the Employment Development Department specifically tailored to veteran employment and successes or failures in that regard?
There is a document that they put out every 6 months, percentage of veterans interviewed, percentage of veterans that get jobs, and I'm sure we could talk EDD into getting you that. I know I get a copy of it every so often. Also, most of us, like I'm a member of our Veterans Employment Committee, which is a combination of EDD, DOL, and all these other people that get together and talk about veterans benefits and employment once a month. I'm also a member of the Workforce Investment Board in our county, and most of our CVSOs are also. So we do have an eye on employment. In fact, there is one place, Kern County, where they have a one-stop, and I would really like to see this happen, where in the County Veteran Service Office, they also have a mental health practitioner, and they have the employment, the EDD people, all in one place, which would be wonderful if we could make that happen statewide. I know that's been talked about, but to have a true one-stop where you can get mental health and employment in one place, where you don't have, oh, go over to Solano Community College.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all.
Well, General Long, I've had to deal with some emergency situations, but nothing like what nurses have to in the military, men and women. And I can only imagine what it's like to look in those eyes, whatever you see, the fear or in these situations, that there's a post-traumatic stress syndrome for you, right?
Right,
Related to
Right.
that. It's a big burden.
yes.
It's
I
please.
was just going to mention that we have one of the situations in Los Angeles County, and the board had the foresight to know that several years ago they invested $35 million into our building. We have a building called Patriotic Hall in Los Angeles County, and because they've invested that money, we now have a center, the One Stop Service Center. So when our veterans come to us and we file a claim, we at the same time do a quick mental health assessment, and if we feel that these veterans need some intervention services, we have our mental health providers right upstairs at Patriotic Hall, and we can take them there for further assessment. So we're very fortunate in Los Angeles County to have those resources available.
And that's certainly a very key element in the incident, all too wide now, of the homeless veterans out there and the mental health problems they share. Thank you for this panel. Please stick around if you would, because I think we maybe have some questions after. Our third panel now, the challenges of outreach. We have Sean Stevens, Marin County, Hannah Williams of Butte County, Virginia Wimmer of San Joaquin County, and George Dixon of Monterey. George, you've come a long way. Thank you, folks. Please come on up and give us your testimony. Sean, why don't you start off?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Senators, thank you for your time today. I'm the Marin County Veteran Service Officer. I'm also a veteran of 4 tours in Afghanistan, 4 combat tours in Afghanistan as an infantryman. So I apologize that I don't have as good of a speech planned as the people who came before me. I currently work with inmates incarcerated in San Quentin. The person who had the job before me was 93 years old when he retired. He had done 30 years with the VA and 30 years with the county. And at that point, I guess it was time to retire and enjoy his retirement. But he was situated behind a desk. And when the call came for the first time from San Quentin to come visit with the veterans inside San Quentin, I was very grateful for that opportunity. It definitely helped me to appreciate how grateful and how blessed I truly am to come home as I did, and to not be one of those veterans incarcerated, not to do something stupid that would get me in there that for whatever reason could have. I've had excuse me, sorry. I've I've worked with the San Quentin prison, Steve Emmerich, who is the volunteer services person, who's been great for me. He has gotten me my what's called a green card, although it took several hurdles to get over that, to get that green card. That is one of the things that we need within the CVSO offices, which gives you the ability to enter the prison freely to go see the veterans one-on-one. It took some time to get that. That would be great if there was some kind of something that came down from the state asking the prisons to please consider giving us green cards much quicker, going through the process that you have to go through as far as fingerprinting and things like that, identification, but avoiding the 6-month wait to go from brown card to green card. By getting the veterans this help, what we're doing that are incarcerated, we're identifying the fact that they have services such as health care. We're identifying the fact that they have mental health care for not only their time in the military, but for their time while in prison. So when they get out, they can immediately start receiving mental health for whatever's going on, not just with their military service like many of them believe, but for the issues that they may have had that got them into prison or that happened to them while in prison. This would be huge to reduce recidivism. It would be huge. Healthcare alone. The other issue is that, and I believe somebody, Ted talked about this earlier, veterans with bad paper, they still have access to VA benefits. It's just not as great of benefits, but they have access to housing, beds, they have access to mental health if they served in combat, and they have access to a lot of other programs depending on where you get them housed. And so a lot of the veterans that I've come in contact with at the San Quentin prison who have been in there for many, many years without any contact from a VSO are unaware that they're even considered a veteran. And I find it to be I'm very grateful to deliver that news. I have 4 veterans currently right now that are out of prison, that were lifers, that were released under some of the new laws that came down, who we've got them housed and we got them into mental health care. I've got one veteran who has 2 Purple Hearts, bad paper, not eligible for any benefits other than housing and mental health. And we got him housed and we've got him mental health. Now we're just working on getting that paper turned around, which I think we're going to have a really successful time at. But man, that guy didn't even know he was a veteran, that he was eligible. 2 Purple Hearts in Vietnam, 18 years old. I mean, it's just a blessing to even be able to talk to that man. For me personally, it is just truly a blessing. And without going too far to the left here, I'll stop. But I just want you to understand that helping the veterans within the prison system is not only good for them, but it's good for the state and it's good for the other residents of the state because we are helping keep these people off the bad side of the street. Thank you.
Well, Stephen, I want to thank you for that noble effort. You know, I spent many, many years as chairman of the Board of Prison Terms. I've looked this up front and personal by the tens of thousands. I can't tell you how many hours I spent in San Quentin prison. I had a private reserve parking place for myself at that prison for many years. And Mary Donham is going to come up and talk a little bit about some of this for those incarcerated veterans. But I'd like to also make a note how a little bit of money goes a long ways. We've got representatives here of the California Arts Council. They may want to come up and say something a little bit later. We worked very hard with them last year to get some restored funding for the California Arts Council. And one of the things that I am working with them on, and that money is being used for, is to arts and corrections. Yep. And I have found that 2 things that really help in corrections is faith, something to deal with faith. Yes. They believe in something, and arts. Now, a lot of people would say, what the heck has that got to do maybe with rehabilitation? It has a lot, and we'll talk about that later. But thank you so much for what you do there.
Yes, sir.
Hannah, how about you next?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Hannah Williamson. I'm former United States Army Staff Sergeant. And I'd like to just discuss the hardships of outreach to our women veteran population in California. According to the California Commission on the Status of Women Veterans in CalVet, of the 200,000 women veterans in California, 55.8% report sexual harassment and 33.3% report sexual assault. Unlike civilian workforce, when a woman suffers sexual trauma in the service, she cannot quit, she cannot ask for a new assignment, and most times just reporting is terrifying. They return and have unique hardships with these difficulties, such as raising children on their own and or dealing with the psychological after effects of events such as military sexual trauma. It takes more resources to reach the women veterans because women often do not recognize themselves as veterans. They don't realize they may qualify for benefits, government-sponsored, psychological, medical, and other benefits intended to ease their transition back into the civilian world. According to a federal profile of women who have served, women are more likely than men to be uninsured, unemployed, divorced, and to suffer from PTSD and depression. Butte County, I'm the county's veteran service officer for Butte County, just north, is home to roughly 19,000 self-identified veterans. We have 5 cities, a few of which are more than 30 miles apart, and 26 unincorporated communities. We have 1 veteran service office. Thus, we are booked back to back with appointments, many veterans having to wait 4 to 6 weeks for an appointment, and that weighs on our conscience greatly. Outreach isn't my dilemma. My dilemma is my inability to serve the number of veterans and widows and dependents that report and respond to our outreach without adequate office staffing. Thus, it is the minority veteran populations in my county who are being neglected: women veterans, sexual gender minority veterans, homeless veterans, and incarcerated veterans. There are no VA shelters, transitional homes, or contracted beds and facilities in my county. There is no access to VA medical care evenings, weekends, holidays, and our VA clinic is by appointment only. VA and EDD assistance will readily sign an unemployed veteran up for a 10-week course in filling out resumes and getting through an interview, but getting rapid employment is highly unlikely. The CVSO, we've built and maintained relationships with community and social resources, housing, emergency shelter, food assistance, emergency utility assistance, senior services, employment services, legal services, et cetera, et cetera. We're in the university, we're in the schools, we're in the high schools, we're in the jail. We connect veterans with local veteran service groups who can help with transportation costs to out-of-town substance abuse programs, hotels for displaced families, beds and linens to transition vets from living in their cars to a new home, and ramps so senior and disabled veterans can leave their homes. The CVSO acts as a point person for the immediate needs of our veterans in our community. Abraham Maslow taught us that one cannot address their psychological needs if they are struggling with basic needs such as housing, food, warmth. But a veteran suffering from mental illness will not be able to find and keep gainful employment unless they get this help. Thus, we take action. One could say it isn't our job, quote unquote, stick to filling out forms. But in rural areas, especially, we don't have a choice as I see it. That veteran, that widow, that dependent or dependents sit in front of me in crisis, confused, betrayed, afraid, ashamed, sometimes dying and trying just to secure benefits for their dependents. Every day I feel an urgency to address the needs of our veteran community so that more children do not end up as collateral damage, developing secondary trauma or secondary PTSD from being separated with or living with a parent who is not being helped with their emotional needs. I've had a number of female veteran clients who suffer guilt on top of their own conditions because of the trauma their children have been exposed to. More than 2 million children separated from their parents due to combat support operations since 9/11. These children and parents are more likely to suffer psychological effects of those hardships. The CVSO seeks out, interviews, and helps veterans applying for benefits they are eligible for, while at the same time addressing their immediate needs with community resources. Honestly, even with the additional funding granted in the past 2 years, we are overextended, working extremely long and emotionally difficult hours. If this additional funding is not granted, many of us will lose the additional staff we've acquired and also the faith in our county supervisors for future funding so that we can request more staff. The truth about reaching veterans to help those in need of veteran services, homelessness, mental illness, unemployability, in rural communities, these issues cannot be solved, achieved, or even properly addressed by the VA alone. In rural counties, the VA is unrelatable to most veterans. The VA, an acronym that is so large and so bureaucratic, unattainable, it's like smoke to them. We are the middlemen and women who the veterans feel safe coming to, telling their stories to, and that we can connect them with any and all benefits they may be eligible for. Thank you.
Very good. All right, let's go to Virginia. And Virginia, I'd like you to focus kind of on the challenges of minorities too, if you could.
Yes, sir.
And by the way, I really like your pin there, the lapel pin with the flag and the cross.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again for inviting us. Again, I'm Virginia Wimmer. I am the CVSO for San Joaquin County. San Joaquin County, we service about 34,000 veterans, but as the chairman requested, I will stick to minority veterans. Minority veterans in itself, veterans are minorities. I mean, we serve, I mean, we're 1% of this entire nation. But here in California, we have nearly 1/3 of the veteran population are minorities. And what we've done in our offices is we've taken this extra funding, this one-time funding, and we've concentrated that on our outreach efforts by hiring part-time folks to help us target outreach events such as connecting with the minority veterans. And those minority veterans include women, of course, LGBT, and other racial subcultures. We concentrate our efforts in establishing rapport and relationship with these communities, specifically the Filipino community and the Mexican American communities, because those communities oftentimes don't feel that they are veterans. They don't feel like they have benefits coming. And that part of that is their culture as well. They don't like to ask for help, but this is not help. These are benefits that they're well deserved. Also, what we've done in our community, specifically in San Joaquin County, we have myself and another one of our veteran service representatives, we became mental health first aid trainers so that we're able to reach these subcultures. We're able to go to faith-based organizations and community-based organizations and provide mental health first aid training. That's not to say that veterans all suffer from mental health issues. However, it is an avenue which we take to reach these folks, to let them know that we are here, we are veterans, and we care. We are compassionate, as you can see, very passionate folk, and we want to help. The challenges have been finding those minority veterans. So without those programs like that, we're not able to always reach out to them. It's oftentimes in our county veteran service offices, there's only one county veteran service officer. Some of those offices have just one part-time CVSO. Some is one CVSO and an office assistant. It's hard to get out to those ultra-rural areas. It's hard to get to the low-income areas to reach these minority veterans. So with the extra funding, it really, really helps us grow these arms and legs, these other appendages, to get out there to see these folks that we need to see. We've participated in benefits fairs. We've participated in stand-downs. We do homeless counts. We do, not only the homeless counts, not just to count the veterans, but family members of veterans. We must not forget that there are family members of veterans who are entitled to services and they're entitled to benefits. And these are the type of outreach events that we've coordinated our efforts with. Our temporary staff has been instrumental in helping us reach these folks. And without this continued funding, this may be a futile effort. We may be going backwards instead of forward. However, the strides that we have made have been super phenomenal, because if we didn't have the prior funding, we wouldn't have been able to do as much as we've done now. And I also wanted to point out to the chairman, to Senator Roth, I, sir, am a living proof that TAP works. TAP works, and I'll tell you why. Because I was retiring. I'm a 26-year veteran from Travis Air Force Base. Not that I spent 26 years there. However, if it wasn't for the outreach program that Ted Puntillo put in place, I would not have had the opportunity to serve as a CVSO. So TAP is working. And so we have to continue to reach those programs. We have to continue to reach out to the DOD, the Department of Veterans Affairs, the California Department of Veterans Affairs, our community-based organizations, as well as our faith-based organizations.
Virginia, I want to thank you for bringing up something that is also often forgotten, and that's the families of veterans. And that's not just the wives, the husbands, uncles, aunts, certainly the children and grandchildren even. It's a big deal. We appreciate very much you being here. We would probably have some questions.